Subculture Talk. I am your host, Pat626. Normally I host Subculture Shock on Sunday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. But I've also come to want to do more than just showcase goth industrial bands. I want to talk to them. So tonight in the virtual studio, I have Bruce Nullify, Ant Banister, and Colin Gallagher of Sequential Zero. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Hey, good. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you for being here. It's exciting times for sure. You guys are setting a Subculture Talk record of most people on the show at one time.
And how about the furthest distance away?
Also, yes, furthest distance away, because we've got you guys are in. You're also the first ones actually to not even be like on the continent, because you're all the way in Sydney.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Bruce is kind of chilling on his own in my neck of the woods,
Spanning the globe.
Yes. We are now multinational.
Yeah.
If I were stretched any thinner, I would be butter on bread. So,
No.
I always like to start the show off with what I like to call the supervillain origin story. So, real quick, if each of you could let me know, like, how did you even get into this music to begin with, and how'd you end up performing it?
You go first, Bruce.
Okay. Initially, when I first got into this kind of music, it was like, I guess hardcore music was the first thing that I really delved into. I was into the school band program when I was younger, and I started playing bass. And I was always kind of like out there, in a good way, I think, but always kind of like marginalized, and I gravitated towards alternative, right? So anything that was kind of different, I enjoyed it. All the things that were of the time seemed very banal and very just despicable to me. Like, how many times can you watch Van Halen jump video before you just want to vomit, right? So I was looking,
I think my record was 47 consecutive times.
Yeah, that's 47 too many for me. So, and when I came up, MTV was new in the 80s, and it was interesting, but a bit mainstream. So I was always on the lookout for other things, and I think I found that through the local college radio station where I lived. They would always have kind of alternative music shows that I listened to ardently. I would always listen to them to say, what's new, what's going on. It was the only way to find things out back then, like what was going, and they also, they would sponsor shows. So anyways, long story long, I started gravitating to some of the hardcore shows that were coming through in the area, mostly because they were all ages, and I was only like 15 years old. So they were the shows I could get into, because, there was no, there was no drinking at those shows, but I can tell you there were a lot of drugs. But that was not my thing. I was straight edge back then, and I kind of knew better. But one of the bands that was doing, like, it was an opening act band. It was a local band. They came out and said, "We're looking for a bass player." And I was like, "Hey, voila, I'm a bass player, and I am all about music." So I got involved with this band. They were all much, much older than me. And we did some pretty interesting gigs for the time. I got to meet a lot of people and bands that were touring America anyways. We opened for acts like Agnostic Front, Gangrene, 7 Seconds, which I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. 7 Seconds got back together. I've noticed they're doing a tour. They were in Providence.
You should ask if you can open for them again, just like old times.
Yeah, right. I think we're doing it a little bit different. And that's kind of like, so here's where the story ends. So, playing bass, I love playing bass still, right? But hardcore music was a little limiting, and it wasn't very involved. And I just wanted to do more. And I went out and I did my own thing. And I had a couple of iterations of local bands. You know, I moved over to vocals and guitar mainly because I don't know why, but no one ever wanted to sing back then. It was always like, who can muster up enough courage to get up and sing into the mic? And even though I was like usually the guy playing the bass or the guitar, I was like, yeah, me, I'll do that. So yeah, I did that for a while. And that's I guess, you know, I feel like I'm hogging the mic here right now, but
we have
that's
plenty of time.
That's my story, man. I'll let the other guys do it for a while.
All right, Colin, Ant, duel to the death of who gets to talk next.
All right, yeah, I'll go. I guess like the other two, I grew up. I was a teenager in the '80s, and things changed for me when I heard The Cure and saw what they looked like as well. That was important to me, and
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, but, and I was just fascinated by the darkness of the music and the darkness of the look, and I don't know what it was about that appealed to me, but it just drew me in, and I was always interested in that kind of music. I didn't play a lot of music at that point in time. I mean, I knew a little bit of guitar, and then as I got older, it just seemed, I don't even know how I ended up being in a band and writing songs. It just kind of happened. I met people and I just found that I enjoyed it and I liked doing it. And so I formed my band Burnt Souls, and we've, you know, been doing shows and playing since about 2017.
You just woke up one morning and you were on tour.
Well, I don't know. It's funny how things happen. It wasn't, you know, a sort of a plan. And same thing with joining this band. Ant produced the Burnt Souls album, and we are in the same scene over here, and we run clubs together. We seem to always be at the same gigs, and it just... Then he was like, I'm starting up a new project, Sequential Zero, and I'd like you to be in it. And it was not hard for me to, it was a pretty straightforward answer. Of course I'll be in it. So, and it's going really well.
And?
Okay. You said you've got a long time. That's good.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, these things usually go on like 45 minutes, and you will not believe how quickly that time disappears.
Yep, no problem. It's been funny because getting to know Bruce, our origin stories mirror each other all the way through. It's crazy. Anyway, so I went to a music high school. I didn't play bass, I played trombone, but we formed a punk band as part of that. We used to practice at lunchtime, and we ended up closing the school year by doing a bunch of Sex Pistols and Cure covers and making the school go off. So
did you play trombone in the punk band?
No, I sang, and that's the thing. I've always admired different frontmen, you know, and wanted to be the frontman, and so there was, you know, that was me. I'd always snatch the mic, and plus the fact that I am multi-instrumentalist, that I'm really terrible at everything, because I'm a producer, songwriter, you know, and I want to get the song out. I don't want to sit and practice for hours and learn how to play someone else's music. I want to make my own music. And if it comes to a point where I want something played that I can't play, well, then I've got a whole community of musicians that, you know, that can join me and I can collaborate with, and that's really exciting for me. So, you know, and finding people that you intuitively come up with the sound that you're after, like Bruce, like it's you know, we have this mind meld, you know.
We do. It's like you're my brother from another mother. That's how I feel.
And Colin and I write really well together as well. And the process of producing the Burnt Souls album was almost like a co-writing project as well. Colin's songs are really are great and strong, and it was just a little bit of molding and some drum programming and stuff. And I helped was helping Bruce out with drum programming for a while as well, but he's gotten really good at it. He doesn't need me as much anymore. But anyway, origin stories. So from the high school, I started going to clubs from Thursday night to Sunday night. I just went to clubs all the way through the 80s. And I had punk bands, and I had a little like electronic band, and I had a radio show, and I ran a nightclub, and I was just, it was pretty busy. And then that was in a small town in the Northern Territory, the north of Australia, and the population of the whole area is only 300,000 people. But the scene was quite strong, and the average age in Darwin at that time was 25 years old, and the clubs would run until daylight, and then we'd keep partying, and it was a crazy town. But then a lot of the people that lived there were from the larger cities, from Sydney and Melbourne and Adelaide down south, and they'd live in Darwin for a couple of years and party, and eventually the giant punk scene that we'd formed was kind of a mixture of punk and new wave and so forth. Art punk were like crazy electronic stuff. Some of it was a little bit like that San Francisco sound, but we all decided to move back down to a bigger city together. And so I moved to Adelaide, and there I met the Mark of Cain, and I started doing live sound for them, and I produced their first single. And because I had a shed lined with carpet, it was like a 4-car shed, and I just filled it with music equipment and recorded demos for a whole heap of bands. And I recorded their demo, and they were really pleased with the sound. So I went with them to a proper studio, and we got a proper single done. And then I went on tour to Sydney with the Mark of Cain, and I fell in love with the town. It's just it felt like home to me. So I very quickly moved here, and got involved with a whole bunch of musicians here, and eventually I joined an electronic music collective, which we called the Collective with a K, and it was a whole bunch of more industrial bands, which sounded a little bit. We were going through the Skinny Puppy period. I had a band called Eidolon with Alberto, who we later formed Lunar Module, and out of that we formed a larger collective called Clan Analog, and Clan Analog went on to become like a worldwide label, and we released over 40 compilations, and basically it was supporting DIY electronic musicians, from getting them from their bedrooms and onto proper labels. We would send them to a proper label. We even though we were a label, our label was for nurturing new musicians. So out of Clan Analog, that was right through the 90s. And then the early 2000s, I'd always been a goth at heart. In 1983, when I discovered Bauhaus and the Dance Society, I said to myself, this is how music should sound. This is my home. It's just a really strong connection with that. And I always had that darker edge. And so in the early 2000s, I couldn't deny it any longer, and I moved away from the electronic music scene, which had become very housey, and the psytrance stuff, and it crawled up its own ass and died. And the goth clubs in the 90s started playing that rubbish EBM, paint by numbers. And because I made music, I knew how easy it was to make EBM, and some of it is amazing. Front 242, those bands, the Revolting Cops and the Ministry, and those guys were incredible, and they that got me really excited. But then I'm not going to mention band names, but there's a few really popular bands that came out of the industrial scene that were just so lame, and I couldn't handle it anymore, and that's all they were playing at the goth club. So I just had to leave. And then 5 years later I moved back, and the trad goth revival had started to happen, and I was ecstatic, because once again you could get on a dance floor, you could dance to Susie and to Bauhaus, and there were new bands coming through, and it was a real renaissance, which we're seeing now. This is an exciting time. There's never been so many goth bands in the world, has there? You must agree.
Well, no, yeah, because I tell people that anyone that says the scene is dying is not paying attention, because I have so much new music coming out, and granted, it's a wide variety of genres, but so much that it's a rarity these days if I have a show where I play something I have played before on the show.
Yeah, that's right. There's so many of the Mixcloud shows I've noticed will only play new releases generally, and every week after week, they're coming out with these new releases that they're playing, and the quality is ridiculous. It's all really, really good. So the democratization of music making, has not produced a bunch of drivel. I mean, I'm sure there is some there, but it's produced some really, really great music. It's empowered some people who feel very, very passionate about music, and who could. I wanted to make more music than I did. That's why I was doing sound for Severed Heads. I doing sound for the Mark of Cain, as I mentioned. I never had enough money to make music on my own, because it was $400 an hour in Australia to use a recording studio.
Woo.
The guys that were making music that I was basically mixing for and roadieing for and stuff, their minimum spend, and this was in the 80s and 90s, was $10,000 for the minimal gear that they needed to get underway. And then there was the recording, and then getting a CD made was just almost impossible, which is because Australia was very was cut off from the networks that you could really take advantage of. So I was always working within the DIY sphere with Clan Analog and so forth, working with people that weren't so well off, and that became like an ethos for me, and I just I wanted to support that. And it was quite obvious the people that did have money weren't always making the best music, and as we all know very well now. So I started going to goth clubs again in about 2004 or 5, and I formed Lunar Module. I wanted to write some new wave electronic 80s music and get away from the house music and the psytrance and stuff. And at that point, I started singing again, because right through the 90s, every time I tried to sing, people would say, "Hey man, you sound too 80s, just stop, just don't do it." So
there is no such thing as sounding too 80s.
Yeah, am I right? Anyway.
No.
So in the early 2000s, I was allowed to sing again, and I wrote this track and released a little EP, and we immediately got on high rotation on the local radio show and radio station, and I thought, okay, I've got something I can run with. And then from there, then 2013, I formed Sounds Like Winter with some friends who kind of fell away from Sounds Like Winter. It was just like a little writing project. And then I got Andy and Letitia on board and 7 different bass players. And
it's like the Spinal Tap drummer in Sounds Like Winter, except it's the bass player.
Bass players. God, and the last bass player, he looked the part and he sounded the part, but he was a disaster. Like personally, as a person, his politics, I'm not going to go into detail. They weren't good, and it wasn't until the pandemic really brought everyone, threw people off the fence. I feel like the pandemic threw people off the fence. You're sitting on the fence, you're an undercover something. The pandemic showed your true colors, and it was good. It was everyone had a good clean out, I feel.
Like a colonoscopy of our friends list.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice social enema going on there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So we've settled with it. We've got our I think he was our fourth bass player. We've got him back, and he's a really good fit. And Jamie, he's fantastic, and we've just released our third album. We're really excited by it. But the downside is that Sounds Like Winter is too guitar based for me. You know, I've always been an electronic musician, and it was something I wanted to do. That I wanted to do the guitar thing, and I've actually become a much better guitarist than I ever was, and I'm enjoying it. And I was able to express that post-punk side of myself really, really to the fullest, and I've really enjoyed it. And the success that Sounds Like Winter's enjoyed has been awesome. But I've got a room full of synthesizers here. Look, I mean, here behind me.
That is not a small number of synths.
No. And that's where my heart lies. And that's what gets my blood pumping. And so I've got Lunar Module was kind of on hiatus because of COVID. And Alberto has, he's the producer for Lunar Module. I'm the producer for Sounds Like Winter. I love producing. It's been an absolute joy producing for these two gentlemen.
The pleasure's all on this side, buddy. It's all over here.
So I expanded Mantravision Productions, which it's kind of a it's got a net label, I guess you could say. So the people and bands that I produce for, and the labels that I master for, and my personal projects all coming under the umbrella of Mantravision Productions. And once again, Mantravision Productions, the ethos is the tide lifts all boats. So any success that Sounds Like Winter's getting, I want to share with the rest of the bands on the label. And the other thing is also that it's not about gatekeeping. We can develop artists, and you don't. It's about helping out. When I'm mastering for other bands and labels, I charge on a sliding basis. If the guy's unemployed, I'm not going to charge him at all. A lot of these guys who, mastering and mixing and so forth, are charging exorbitant prices. And so once again, they become a pseudo gatekeeper. Someone who's passionate, who could write a great track, who just needs a little bit of help or just needs exposure, they're left floundering, and feeling unfulfilled. And I'm very passionate about helping people achieve their vision and their goals.
And you got a great ear for music. Yeah, I got to tell you, and I want to make I'm going to make you blush now. Because one of the things that drew me towards Sounds Like so going back to when I first met Ant, he was doing a radio show. Mm-hmm. And I think I reached out to him and we talked about a specific song. I'm trying to remember the name of the song. It's had something to do with it was like an old LA punk song, but he had a really good taste for different stuff. Like I'd never heard this song, even though it was like an old 80s tune and I should have known it. And I thought, wow, that's cool. And I reached out to him, we talked about it. But then, I found out he had a band, which was Sounds Like Winter. And I really was enthralled with them because not just the music was good, but the songs are meaningful songs. Like the Vox on those songs. If you listen to each of the songs, there's some, there's a lot of thoughtfulness put into those lyrics. And I think the first song that really put the hook in me that I couldn't get out of my head was let's see, I want to say it was Porcelain, but Porcelain was
it's just about sex.
Yeah,
that's sex. But then the Hollow song too, hollow, another day, another night, and that sounds like the feeling of alienation or loneliness in the city kind of thing. And then you look at the lyrics and you're like, yeah, right on. That really has some depth to it. It's not just like, oh, I love my baby and my baby's great, and let's, the whole, let's just talk about things that are fluffy. And I really enjoyed that about it. He does a really good job. And then, after we kind of compared notes, hey, I got a band, you got a band, right? And I was trying Orcus Nullify back then. I was trying to be electronic, right? One-man electronic type thing, which I feel in hindsight, I was bad at. I just, like, my heart wasn't.
Oh, come on now.
No.
Well, okay, this is me. I'm rough on myself, but Ant put me on the right path, right? He kind of said, he listened to it and he was like, yeah, you could do this and this and this. And I need a lot of help back then. And he got me going the right way. I feel like what I'm doing with my Orcus Nullify thing is the best that I have ever done with it. It's much improved, which I owe a lot to Ant. That and my wife, Leonia. She gets involved with writing the lyrics for me. And, it doesn't hurt that she's, got a master's in English and, is like a big time reader, book person.
And I'm pretty sure that's who I'm talking to in chat right now, too.
Probably so. She's probably watching. Unfortunately, she's with her dad down in Florida. Her father took a little spill, but so we're apart and we're hating life because we're not together. But I got the furry babies and I'm taking good care of them. If you're listening,
that's her.
yeah, it's her. So yeah, we love dogs, man. We got 3 dogs.
Too late, Leonie. Your secret's out. Sorry. I guess I should have spilled the beans.
You busted her cover. But anyways, I digress. I'm going off to the oat field. But what I just wanted to say is I really appreciate Ant a lot. I think of him like a brother, even though I've never met him in person. He's on the other side of the world. We've known each other for years now. I mean, 5 to 8 years, Ant, something like that.
At least, yeah,
like a long time. And he's taught me a lot. He's made my music just a different plateau, right? He's really he has given me a much better ear for music and helped me out a lot. And he's done it he's a very like charitable person. Like he's done it with there wasn't any kind of profit motive there. He's just I mean, how can I say it?
This is not a genre you get into for the money.
No, there is no money. And we love what we do, right? Yeah. And I got to tell you, and I'm sorry if I hijacked it from you. I'll let you get back. But I just real quick, fast forward to sometime last summer-ish, Ant just kind of said, hey, Bruce, I'm doing this thing with Sequential Zero. And, I'm trying this out and, would you be interested? And boy, was I ever. It didn't, usually I think about things quite a bit before I jump into them, but this took no thought. It was just, yes, I'm in, whatever it is. I don't, hey, if we're doing experimental, I'm in with you. We're going to do it and we're going to do it the best we can.
All right. So this is my Gregorian chant band.
Thanks so much, Bruce. I appreciate all your positive feedback. Look, I wear my politics on my sleeve, and I suffered. I can say poor me, whatever, and make excuses for why I was a lazy musician, but I always blamed gatekeepers and those with lots of money that, where I was maybe some envy going on, whatever. But the Sequential Zero project has been really exciting. The results have been completely different to what I expected and better at the same time. So it's been a real synergy. I think the sum of the parts. The results have been really, really good, and also I'm really heartened by the way the project has been received by people such as yourself, Pat. We're getting much more, support, airplay, and so forth than I ever expected, which has been really gratifying. I'd really like to bring the project over your way. So, that's up to Colin whether he's ready to jump on a plane with me at some stage.
No, I don't mind at all.
Are you willing to jump out of a plane with him, though?
That might be going a step too far.
Skydiving, yeah.
I guarantee you would be the first band to perform, at least the first dark scene band to perform while skydiving.
Yeah, not happening, Pat. I don't even like climbing on a climbing wall.
I'm bad for heights.
Yeah,
it's okay. All of my ideas are genius. Trust me. So, you mentioned that the band, that this particular project has turned out different from how you expected and better at the same time. And I guess it's kind of interesting to me because, you say that I'm trying to figure out what you were expecting, because you mentioned that you wanted to do more electronic, but there's so much lathering of dreamy guitar in this as well that I feel like, you've got the arpeggiated synths in the background, but you've still got like the ghost of Robert Smith hanging out so much that he's tending bar, and that's a compliment. So what was the goal?
I think that's it. You nailed it. So basically, yes, it was an electronic project because I really needed to get my synth on, and I have a real drum machines, my catnip. I can't get enough of. I'll just a very quick aside. In about 1983, I was in a club and I always sat next to the DJ. And I would tell him what to play pretty much. He had this massive collection of 12 inches, and this new 12-inch arrived in the mail, and he opened it up while I was there. He said, there's this band called Severed Heads. And I went, oh yeah, well, let's put it on and have a listen to it. And this club had an amazing sound system. We were there alone and we put it on. And I noticed as the record was spinning that the grooves went in a perfect spiral for this one particular track, Dead Eyes Open. And they were in a perfect spiral. And I said to him, I went, Carl, look at that perfect spiral. You know how that happened? And he goes, no, I've got no idea. I said, they used sequencers and drum machines. And he went, what the hell is that? And I said, it's this new thing. The synthesizers can play themselves and stay in time and be robotic, and they sound amazing, and they can, one man can play all this music and program it. And this is what it does, and it produces this amazing sound. And and the grooves went in like a spiral, and like from then on I was like, yes, I have to own my first synthesizer. Of course, 1983, the starting entry price for a synthesizer was probably $5,000. In 1983, that was equivalent of $250,000 or something, or $10,000, or it was just out of.
It was a lot of money.
It was a lot of money. So it was the rich kids that, whose daddies could buy them a room full of synths that were making synthesizer music, or they managed to trick a really lucrative, like a well-funded record label into buying them synthesizers. No one could get them out of their own pocket. But then Roland released the SH101, and mine is still up there. Can you see the red keyboard?
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. My dad, he said to me, I'll do you a deal. He said, if you can save up half the money, I'll pay the other half, and you can buy your first synthesizer and a drum machine. So we bought the synthesizer and a drum machine in 1985. And when that came out, and from then on, yeah, I was hooked. But anyway, I wanted to do pure electronic music because that's what I love with Sequential Zero, and I was really enjoying the Darkwave scene that had exploded and basically moved the industrial scene aside a little bit. So and the clubs in Europe and so forth are just going off with this amazing new sound. And it sounded like the 80s, but it was new and contemporary. And boy, Harsher and bands like that, it's like really float my boat. Yeah. Anyway, so I said, yeah, now that Sounds Like Winter has its own momentum, which is what I always wanted it to have, I felt like I've been pushing that band uphill forever, and I just wanted a downhill slope, please. Finally, it arrived, and we've become a little bit more of a household name in the scene, and we're getting invited to play this and that. And it's a really good feeling, and so now I have the space and the energy to do something that I'm passionate about. So Sequential Zero comes along. This is a long answer to your question, but Bruce's guitar was this pleasant surprise, because as he said with Orcus Nullify, it's more of electronic based stuff, and the guitar's there and it's a strong part of it, but then I feel like somehow he's unleashed himself on Sequential Zero.
Well, and that's the thing that kind of surprised me, because I'm used to Orcus Nullify being a lot more electronic, and Sounds Like Winter is the project of yours that I'm the most familiar with, which is, like some really good, solid goth rock to write home to mom about. And so when I find out, oh yeah, Ant's mostly like pushing it towards the electronic, and Bruce is the one bringing in the guitar, I'm just like, what?
What?
Has the world gone mad?
Yeah, well, Bruce, he bought a new amplifier, and he's been upgrading all his gear, and he's just become much better at recording, and so I think it was always in him. It's just now it was the perfect time, and it just came together.
I appreciate that. I'm very flattered. Thank you. Yeah, and I really don't pull any punches now with the guitar either. Like, the weird thing for me is hearing the final product, because I'll pull up my telly and make a bunch of screeching post-punk, I guess, just like the thing I do, and then somehow Ant sticks them in with the synth and they sound right. And that to me is like just, I don't know, it's like mixing mustard in with milk or something. And
see,
somehow
the way you say that, I almost picture you in the recording studio like, God damn it, Ant, I was trying to fuck this song up. What did you do?
I just do what I do, and then somehow it comes out sounding the way it does. And I really appreciate the Sequential Zero, and I will put aside whatever I'm working on. If Ant will shoot me over something and just say, Bruce, have a listen to this and see if you can put together some guitar on it, and let me know whenever, and then I'll get it, and I'll go to town on it. I'll have it done that night, because I'm excited by it, and I want to see what I can do with it. But when I'm done with it and I send over the guitar riffs, I'm like, I wonder if Ant is just going to kick these things right back at me, or just not use them. But somehow he takes them and mashes them up and turns them into something that, comes out sounding like art, which, it's really a good feeling to be a part of something like this. We feel like you're putting something good out there. And I don't have to do, with my other project, Orcus Nullify, all the instrumental parts, it's all me. So it's really refreshing to kind of, for me, to pull back from that and have just something where I can solely, like guitar. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing guitar. I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to do it the best I can do it. So I can fully focus on that instead of, I don't know, when I'm putting together Orcus Nullify, I'm always like, I usually start with the bass, and then I'm hurrying myself through the bass so that I can get to the next instrument. And then I just feel like with focusing on the guitar for this for Sequential Zero for this band, I can really give it, like 100% and focus on just that.
So, Colin, I've kind of heard from the other guys about it. When Ant asked you to join the project, like, what was your plan? What did you want to bring to it? And has that changed, or are you pretty much doing what you wanted to do when you agreed to join up?
Look, I think as Ant mentioned, when he produced the Burnt Souls album, we kind of, a lot of the songs weren't even written for that project, and Ant and I sort of worked on those songs together, and I think we sort of both realized that we worked well together. You know, if I came up with a suggestion or he came up with something, it was usually what the song needed. And I feel like, you know, I mean, even when I just arrived at Ant's place today, he's playing some new songs for Sequential Zero, and I'm sitting there next to him saying, well, actually, you know, why don't we do this here and this in this part? And so I feel like I'm just returning the favor to him with what he did with Burnt Souls, in the sense that I'm like a second pair of ears, and I'm, you know, helping him make these songs into something better. And you know, that being said, I'm putting some vocals on a couple of songs. He gave me a song to basically start from scratch, which I really enjoyed working on that. And you know, I've put some keyboard parts on some of the other songs, and it's me basically just helping out here and there, doing a bit of whatever he needs for the songs to be better. And so far I'm really enjoying that. It's good.
Yeah, to a large extent, we kind of finish each other's musical sentences, and we always have since we started working together. And yeah, and the results have been really, really, really good. So I'm kind of like the Martin Hannett school of producing when it comes to guitars, because even with Sounds Like Winter, quite a few of the songs would be, Andy would come over to my house and he'd just strap on a guitar or a bass guitar, and he would just go to town, as Bruce described. He'd just unleash, and I'd record 7 or 8 tracks of just guitars playing over the drum bed that I'd given him. And then Andy would go away, and then I'd cut it all up and you know, and make a song out of it, or use it in an existing song. And that's what I really enjoy doing. It's kind of like a musical collage, and I've got the scissors there sitting there behind me on the computer, and I can cut things up, and I can use effects, I can stretch things, and yeah, production for me is just it's really, really exciting. I love doing it, and working with these two fellas, it's been really, really good.
And I just wanted to say also, like, it's nice. I feel like with Burnt Souls, I'm the one that's kind of controls it, and it's nice to not be the one who's driving everything and pushing everything. And Ant, you know, he's driving this band, and he's writing the songs, and he's giving it momentum. So for me, it's nice to have things happening without having to be the one that's making them happen. So that's really good.
You know, one of the things that I feel is important with Sequential Zero too is I feel like we're all kind of like self-motivated. I don't ever have to really push on anybody in this band to get things done. Like, we all want to do what we're doing, and we all there's no having to worry about, oh geez, you know, when am I going to get the fit, you know, when's that part coming in, or when's Bruce going to take care of this bit? Or we all seem to really just we make it happen, right? We're all
that's been a nice change.
Well, now.
Yeah.
I've felt like every band I've been in, I'm carrying them on my back, you know.
Well, that's pretty typical, isn't it, though? That's been my experience in my old bands too. You know, I always felt like the guy that had to be like, okay, I got to get some money from you guys so I can pay the rent for the rentals, you know, the studio space, or, you know, we got to get that equipment out of here. You know, it's nice when you got 3 people that you don't got to say anything to. We're all doing our parts. We're all pulling it, and we're all pushing together in the same, the word you used earlier, you know, we have, what's the word? Synergy. Yeah. Exactly the right word for Sequential Zero. Yep.
And all of the sudden, this becomes like a boardroom how to make your business work video.
Yeah.
Synergy. So-
techniques that you can use in your band.
So we've talked about the past, what got you where you are. We've talked about what you've been doing and how the band has really come alive as the three of you. I think that leaves us with, we have a little bit of time left. So what do you see as the future for Sequential Zero? Obviously writing more music, but are there plans, despite being on the other side of the planet from each other, for full albums, tours, things like that?
So the plan in a nutshell is to release 5 2-track singles, and then at the end put them all together with probably another 2 tracks and maybe some remixes, and release an album. At that point, it'll be physical, so we'll press it onto a CD. If we're feeling really particularly flush and confident, we might even do vinyl. But at that point, I personally would really, really like to come over and join Bruce, and for the three of us just to do maybe, a little East Coast tour or something, I work full time, so I can probably only spare 4 weeks or something, maybe 3. But yes,
and
just
immediately I know that you don't work in America, because you're like, oh, I work, but I can spare like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah,
That's so true. That's so true. I was thinking of myself 2 weeks, maybe, if I tried really hard.
Yeah. We never take for granted that we live in a socialist utopia, even though our government is slightly right wing. At the same time, unemployment benefits that are fairly generous, free healthcare for all, and we have compulsory voting. I'm going to put my hand up for compulsory voting. Everyone is forced to vote, and when everyone is forced to vote, you don't get a crazy fucker in charge.
See, all of my American viewers just came right now. Like,
I'm thinking, how do I get to Australia?
Yeah, right.
No matter how bad our government is, it's still sitting roughly in the center there, and we value what we have here. We treasure it and we look after it. So being able to take the time off there, we don't take it for granted at all. We don't take it for granted whatsoever.
I feel like we need like another hour to talk about our political views.
Oh my God.
And our music.
Yeah, you know what? If I ever set up like a subculture politics show, I'll let you know.
Bring us there.
But I think we're gonna have to get another moderator, because I won't be able to stop myself from talking over everybody else.
But speaking for myself, I'm looking forward to when Sequential Zero does actually play some live shows, and I would be, if Ant said we're going to America, next month, I'd be on the plane. It's,
That's definitely happening. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. That is absolutely and 100% happening. So.
Well, I'm looking forward to it then, because I live on the East Coast.
Yeah, I really wanted to tour Sounds Like Winter, but it's a big band, maybe it could happen, but it's just, there's a lot of things to line up, whereas the three of us are a little bit more of a tighter unit, and I feel like the three of us are in a better position, even financially speaking, to be able to do something like that, So that's pretty exciting. Now, I'm going to be murdered if I don't quickly mention the side project I'm in, Heatwave International, with No Devotion Records.
Whoa, hold on. That's you? I just played that on Sunday, and I love the ever-loving shit out of it. I didn't know you were involved with it.
It has like 1,000 irons on the fire. No idea how he does it.
This is what I get for not reading the press release.
So it's John Bechtel from Ministry, Fear Factory, and False Icons, Roberto Mendoza from Panoptica, and Nortec, and myself.
Wow.
And it's all being held together by Mario Cabada from No Devotion Records, who's become a really close friend of mine, operating out of Mexicali. And he's been a great supporter of both projects, of all of my projects actually. And yeah, he's a good guy. But anyway, I just thought I'll throw that out there. This new single out, We Won't Be Silent.
And it kicks. It
Give
kicks.
Take Record. And it kicks, thank you.
Yeah.
All I really did was sing. These guys are pretty heavy hitters. They sent a mix to me, and I did some mix downs and stuff. But the songs are so full, they just need someone to sing. So, and I love to do that, and I enjoy writing lyrics. And I was able to throw in some political content about the end of the world, about climate change and stuff, and I was happy. Anyway, enough about that. Back to Sequential Zero. So yeah, look, really appreciate your support, Pat. And
Absolutely.
And thank you enough for having us on, and I really enjoyed.
Besides on my show, where can people find your music?
On Bandcamp, basically. Until we now we've got a label kind of sniffing around. What are they called? They're called Light Armor Editions. They've just released through a license to Metropolis in the US, the new Snog album, and also an solo album by one of the guys from Bowers, Mike J.
David J.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so he's just produced 2 albums. And he really liked our first single. What was it? What's the name of our first track?
If I have to look up your first single,
The Lost Ones. The Lost Ones, which is
so long ago.
which is funny because The Lost Ones has been our worst performing track of all time. Like it did nothing. It's had 14 plays on Bandcamp. But he really likes it, so he's been this guy has taken away another producer, and he's been remixing it, and he wants to try and license a little EP for Sequential Zero through Metropolis, hopefully. But the guy, it's been moving really, really slowly, so I'm just going to continue on doing what we're doing. Any labels out there, you want to put your hand up for European or US distribution?
maybe send an email because we can't see your hands right now.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm talking about the labels. I can see your hand just fine.
Yeah. Mantravision Productions on Facebook, just hit me up, or Ant Banister. Just come and talk to me, or you can hit us up through Bandcamp. So on Bandcamp, sequentialzero.bandcamp.com. We've got 3 of our singles up so far. The 4th one is well on the way. It's sitting on the screen behind us. It's really exciting.
Spoilers.
Bruce came up with this really, really catchy Killing Joke style rhythmic guitar.
You have my attention.
This song wrote itself. Like, it's just bam. I think within an hour or something, I'd sent a little piece to Bruce. I said, "What do you think of this?" Like, so exciting. So we got that, and the very first track that Colin and I wrote together for Sequential Zero is also going to be on that 2-track single. So that'll be fourth sequence, right? It'll be called Fourth Sequence, and so 2 tracks we're really excited about.
Just a note about Orcus Nullify. I've been extremely productive lately. I don't know why, but something must be in the water. But I think I'm up to 6 or 7 songs. I think I'm going to be ready for a full LP this summer.
Woo,
with
woo,
Orcus Nullify. Yeah.
woo.
And Colin's well into his Burnt Souls album.
Yeah, there'll be another one. Probably out later this year, I hope. So
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have some work to do.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess, and I know you all are going to send them my way, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, always. Always.
Thank you all very much for being on the show. This
Thank you,
was
Pat.
awesome.
It is way appreciated.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
absolutely.
I apologize for dominating most of the proceedings, but I'm suffering from motor mouth.
It's okay. It meant that I didn't have to talk as much. So, for those of you that are watching live, up next we have the after party, a Beat Match Mix show, including live drawing on screen as well, which is going to be really cool. So some live art as well as live DJing. And for those of you watching on YouTube, well, I guess now you can go to the Sequential Zero Bandcamp and download stuff. Yeah, chop, 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 chop. And thank you all. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Take care.